Well, guys, doggo's taking me on my evening stroll. I wanted to share with you a story that took place back in, I believe it was a school year of 88 and 89. I know I'm dating myself. That was my 8th grade year. And I met a person, a man, that made a big difference in my life, big impact. We all have had at least one person in our life that really made a positive impact. So let me back up just a bit to the school year before that. Now, I was never one of those kids that was constantly rebellious as far as trying to break the rules when it came to smoking and drinking and, corrals and running around doing dumb stuff like that as a kid. But I was a practical jokester. I loved to play pranks, and I was that tall, skinny, awkward kid that didn't really fit in. Had my own sense of style, if you will. I rocked a mullet and a rat tail at the same time. Y'all remember those? Now, because of where I went to school, I never was able to let my rat tail get very long, but I tried. So, school year of 87, 88, I went to this little private school. And of course, as with every school, and as there should be, there was a handbook with rules in it. One of the rules was that you're not supposed to have a lighter at school. I mean, normally that makes sense. I'm not arguing against the rule. But you have to understand that when I was a kid, we didn't have running water and electricity in our house. So, kerosene lights and wood heat. A lighter was just a tool to me. Wasn't something I used to cause problems. Well, the teacher that was there in my 7th grade year, well, let's just say he struggled to understand that kind of lifestyle. And he didn't understand me at all. And I know some kids are out to cause problems, to break the rules, to see what they can get away with. Got a big old train passing. But that wasn't me that year. I was trying to abide by the rules. I had gotten up that morning, lit the kerosene lamp in my room. Hope that train's not making it hard for y'all to hear. And I stuck the lighter back in my pocket where it was almost always at. And this particular morning, I forgot to take it back out of my pocket before I left the house. And of course, you can easily see the outline of a lighter in somebody's pocket. And I hadn't been at school very long before the teacher called me aside and confiscated my lighter. Made a really big deal over it because he just could not understand why a 15-year-old kid would need a lighter unless they were up to no good. And I tried my best to respectfully explain to him that it was an honest mistake, that I had used it that morning in lighting a lamp and had just forgotten to leave it at home. He ended up calling my mom in, and we ended up having a big meeting, and it was just, I felt like at that point in my life that he was just out to get me, looking for anything he could to to get me in trouble. And I realized my perception at that point in life could have played a lot into that feeling. So basically I was put on probation. Told if I messed up again, I'd be expelled. Yeah. Well, I had gotten a pair of those cheap metal handcuffs that kids play with, and I don't remember if I got it for I don't remember where I got it, but the dog's trying to tie me up in a knot here with her leash. At any rate, I got these handcuffs, and I had been playing with them with my sister before we left for school, and I stuck them in my back pocket. Forgot they were there. I was busy with other things, and I honestly just completely forgot they were in my pocket. Well, one of my classmates saw them and asked what it was. He thought it was actually a can of dip in my pocket because they were kind of round. And I told him, "Oh no, they're handcuffs." "Oh, well, I want to see them. Let me see them." Well, I realized that even though the handbook didn't specifically say no handcuffs, that it was probably going to be on the contraband list somehow. There was probably something in the rule book that could be interpreted to mean I shouldn't have handcuffs at school. So I told him, "No, can't see them. Wait until after school when we're outside and our parents get there." So we went outside and we were sitting on the concrete steps. And both of our parents pulled in at the same time. I said, "Okay, now you can see them." So I pulled them out of my pocket and handed them to him. And the teacher had been standing inside the school at the window watching me. Well, I'm not going to assume why, but I had no sooner put the handcuffs in my friend's hand than the front door burst open really hard and quick, and he came running down the steps and snatched those handcuffs and took me and my mom back into the school and proceeded to expel both me and my sister. I have never understood that because my sister was not a troublemaker at all. So I was really kind of bitter about that whole deal because I really honestly felt I had been treated unfairly, which is life. You know, I get that. I'm not one of those "it's no fair" kind of people. It's just I really felt that I had been treated unfairly, that I hadn't done anything that deserved being expelled for. And I'd only been there for 2 weeks, or 2.5 weeks maybe by this point. Total, I think. That has been 30 years, 31 years, somewhere in that range. So, my mom did something else for school for the rest of that year. And they changed teachers. So we heard they had a new teacher the next year, and my mom called and had a meeting with him, on the phone or in person, I'm not sure which. And she asked me if I'd be willing to go back and try going to school there again for my 8th grade year. Now this school only went through 8th grade, and I would have had to go somewhere else after that anyway. And it was close, and I knew that my mom wanted me to. I was obviously a bit hesitant, didn't know the new guy, hadn't had a good experience with the last guy. But I said, yeah, I'd give it a try. So my long, tall, skinny, corduroy dressed self showed up to school first day. I walked in the hall, not really knowing what to expect. I was 15 going on 16. And this, I'm going to say 5'10", maybe. A little shorter than I was. Really neat, well-dressed, casual dressed, but really well-dressed, neat, almost military-looking guy. And honestly, I don't know if he was military or not, but he could have been because he was just so well-kept and neat. I was really impressed at first sight. He came walking out into the hall and he saw him and he walked right up to me and he held his hand out. And he shook my hand. and introduced himself and asked who I was, which he probably knew, but we hadn't actually met at that point, who I was. And he welcomed me there. And we talked for a minute. And went on into class. Well, I don't remember exactly when the conversation took place. Honestly, at this point, I don't remember if it was between him and my mom or between him and I. But he told us that he believed in second chances. And he told us that he had never read my file from the previous year, that he had simply thrown it in the trash, that we were going to have a fresh start. And that really had a huge impact on me. So, because I felt at that point that he had treated me so fairly and so open-mindedly, and he came up and looked me in the eye and shook my hand like I was a grown man. Of course I wasn't. Wanted to be. But it made me try to be, in the way that I acted, in the way that I responded to him. And of course there's always going to be that test, that that incident that takes place, that has to take place in every relationship, that establishes authority. Who's in charge? So whoever had been in that desk prior to me had scratched, I don't remember, some initials into the top of it. And then they had taken a pencil and kind of filled it in. So it was, looked like pencil marks, but it was scratched in. So I was sitting there listening to a class, and I was erasing, trying to clean the top of my desk up. He glanced back. Of course, the rule book said no drawing on your desk, no writing on your desk. And he glanced back, and I think he thought initially, Douglas found something she's excited about. I think initially he thought I was drawing on my desk, and he told me to stop. And in fact, I think he said something about stop drawing on your desk. And I said, but I'm not drawing, I'm erasing. He said, I don't care, I told you to stop. Well, even at that point in my life, I understood enough about psychology to realize what was going on, and the entire class was watching. I believe it was, I don't remember if it was 4th or 5th through 8th grade, all in the one room. Small room, small little schoolhouse. Only 2 rooms, 2 schoolrooms, lower grades and upper grades, 1 through 8 at that point. And he was standing there staring at me. He never raised his voice. He was just very firm. He said, I told you to stop. So I realized at that point, I knew exactly what was going on. And I knew the entire class was watching me. And in that moment, I realized that how I responded to his command for me to stop, even though I was actually trying to clean my desk, would set the tone for how the rest of the year would go. This is something a lot of young people don't think about. They don't pay any attention to. I could have decided I was going to make a name for myself in front of those students, that I was going to show him who was boss, like so many young kids try to do. But I didn't want to have a bad year. I liked this guy. He had treated me with respect from the moment I walked in, unlike the experience that I had had the year before. So without hesitation, I just said, yes, sir. And I stopped. Now, I finished cleaning it later, but I didn't buck the system. I didn't argue with him. I wasn't disrespectful to him. From that point on, I had a fantastic year. I really did. As the year progressed, somehow he had figured out that I had both a pocket knife and a lighter in my pocket at all times. I never took them out, never messed with them, but he knew I carried them. A lot of times I went straight from school to a job. I mowed. I turned 16 in November of that year, so for the majority of that year I had a driver's license. Now, I wasn't allowed to drive to school as far as on school property, but I could park at a neighbor's house right across the street and then walk over, and I would leave from there from school and go to work. You know, I wasn't out skateboarding and playing video games, hanging out with my friends, causing trouble. I was working. I had goals in life, things I wanted to do. And he understood that. It reached a point where, before that school year was out, and I realized I was behind in school at that point. I never claimed to be the brightest crayon in the box. He would, for different craft projects or whatever, he would actually ask me to borrow my pocket knife in front of the class and then return it to me in front of the class, even though the handbook still said the same thing that it said the year before that. None of the students in the class had a problem with it because they all understood I wasn't there breaking the rules with it. They knew. Kids know, you know, because when teachers not looking, kids know what other kids are doing. So they didn't have a problem with him returning the lighter and the pocket knife to me at different times. He had borrowed both right in front of the class and handed them back to me in front of the class. That man made a real impact in my life. He helped to shape the direction that I was going, my thinking, the way that I looked at things. And he was only in my life for that one school year, as far as a student goes. I knew him much longer than that. I watched that man selflessly give of his time and resources and energy to try to have the same impact on other kids. And I don't know their stories. I don't know what kind of impact that he had on them. But I can tell you that I was blessed to have a man like that impact me at that point in my life. And I am thankful to this day for Mr. Eldon Roberts. A good man. Now, I know that was a bit long. Going on 19 minutes now of me rattling on. But I wanted to share that with you because I believe that people like Eldon Roberts deserve to be remembered. Now, I'm not saying he's passed on at this point. I'm saying that he deserves to be recognized. Maybe that's a better word. Men and women like Eldon Roberts deserve to be recognized for the work they do and the impact they make on young people's lives. Now, there's several other people that have also had a huge impact, and I won't go into those names at this point. But what I would ask is that I'm not discounting parents at all. I am not discounting parents. They're the reason we are here. They're the reason we are who we are. But I would love it. Pardon me. I would love it if you guys would tell just a little bit of your story. Drop it in the comments below. Or if it's too long for that, but you would still like that person in your life to be recognized, send me an email. Truckingwithbones@gmail.com. Truckingwithbones@gmail.com. I don't have time to edit it or anything like that, so just make sure that it's well written. And I will read your story and put it on this channel. I think we need to take more time to say thank you to the Eldon Roberts in our lives. They often go unthanked. They're often misunderstood by helicopter parents, by parents who don't take the time to try to listen and understand, who think their kids should get special treatment, by school board members whose kids didn't get the grades they thought they should, by just whatever. Teachers are often not treated the way they should be. So thank you, Mr. Roberts. You made a difference, and I will forever be grateful.